To the republic, which stands John. This is not. Discuss too.
Our food waste and trash and keep a record of the number of pounds of each. In the last month and a half, our food waste has been more than 60% of our total trash. That's a significant amount of waste that's not going into a landfill somewhere. And it's many pounds of trash for at the transfer station. Of course, is creating beautiful compost for vegetable and flower gardens and returning nutrients to the earth. I believe Greenway Environmental Services will be turning Hurley's brush and logs into usable compost, which will then be helpful in the cleanup of the old dump. And as an aside, I remember solid waste burden. Are science-based we're doing very well.
Thank you, Meg. That's awesome. And I second everything she said. I'm also in the pilot and it's unbelievable. Even my husband, who was skeptical at first, he's really into it. Realizing how much food waste we actually have and taking it out of our, and we're planning to get rid of our garbage pickup and we're all in. So I encourage as well everyone to, try it. And Shabazz and Josephine are fantastic.
I just got to correct one thing you said, Megan. That is, those who live near the transfer station, be called the transfer station, not the dump.
That's why I referred to it as a dump.
Oh, way back.
That was way back. That was decades ago.
I lived there. Anybody else wish to speak? All right, motion to close the public comment period. Second, all in favor? Aye. Good. All right, we have the minutes are online and so forth. Has everybody read the minutes and gone over it? Yes. Okay, all right, all in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye. Second, I did the backwards. Motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Okay, All in favor?
I,
So we're gonna, so Jeremy,
Mhm.
when you go to the minutes like tomorrow, so take all the drafts off the, like, town clerk's report.
no,
Round the word.
Okay, I'm just following you here.
I can. We have, there were still a few, that you can make response to, and we went back through to verify everything, so those are done. I got the final payment on Monday, and, also the final adjustment that had to go to the county. Once the letters went out from residents, they then got a few people who responded and said, no, we paid our taxes. So we had to go back. One was one was a situation where the check had been returned several times, can't find it clear. And the other one was one that was an online payment that never registered through any of the portals. So what we were able to track that.
Okay.
So that's it.
Supervisor Boyd, again, I'm gonna have it, next time. We'll be talking about the financials and also a little information on the capital that I did. Used for the assessors. We have 7 sales that took place in the month of July. All right, and basically that's all we owe. The building department. Rental operating rooms of 22, 5 safety inspections performed of 5, MS4 out. $612, and the revenue to year for the year so far is 100.
But just to clarify, that revenue actually just affects. Just department expenses.
This 2024 budget, the that's a high now. It's a slow. Expectation. All right, the one thing that about $10,000, and again, we try to revenue. Year they have collected revenue $240,000. So this looks like a we're going to have. $300,000 for the year. That includes the wages. That includes all the
Would just make the operation more complex. And because we sell the $10, a lot of this stuff they're doing something, KISS people send us to. So that matters close.
Right.
Hi, Raj. Okay.
Highway facility. And since that time, we've put together a preliminary plan for the highway facility for the new garage, in conversations with Mike Schultes. And the layout is, as you see, although that's preliminary. When we get into the actual design process, this will move around the way it needs to be. And this facility measures 14,500 square feet. So with that in mind, this facility accommodates the eight large pieces of equipment that the town has, plus it has room for five additional pieces of equipment. And one of the things the board has talked about is we need to make sure we're thinking about extra room for the future. We'll talk about that again when we show you where the possible site for locating this is. Jeremy, if you move this down a page, we provided Mike and the board with some profiles of the facility. Again, just to look at dimensions. One end of it will have a mezzanine, an internal mezzanine. Some mechanicals up there, and that'll give us more. And
yeah, I gotta take this thing off. Okay.
If
There
for those of you who have next, you have, I believe you have a little bit less roads, you have a little bit less equipment, and so this one comes in around 14 and a half. And you can even go to the next one. These were just to get a sense of the height that Mike thought was necessary. And we'll have much more detailed designs for folks to make the facility look aesthetically pleasing. Anyway, suffice it to say that if we had a 14,500 square foot facility, we need a big piece of property to put it on. We've spent the past few months looking at different properties, having a lot of conversations with board members and others. Pete Glass's committee provided us with some alternatives, none of which really panned out. Right now, the garage up at the town park. And that is for context. This is the tennis courts up at the park. And then we have a basketball court here that's, I don't think gets a lot of use, but that's where the basketball court is. And the idea is that right in back of that, there's a nice flat, few acres of land. The baseball field is right here. And what we're gonna do is situate the building here, leave some trees to buffer the building from the baseball field, and essentially buffer that big building from all directions. One of the advantages of this property, it is flat. It is off Dug Hill Road. It is centrally located. We will have enough room for septic, and we'll have enough room for stormwater. And as Mike told us in the beginning, we can go around the back of that facility and make our way to an area where the town currently stores aggregate and other materials. So with all that said, it seems to be a promising location. Now, it is at a which I don't think this is the town park. So, end of story. Right, we looked at that park was at a it's used as a park. The property is approximately 60 acres. When you want to transfer ownership other than park activities, you have to go through a process. State Parks and Rec And it also helps our Senate and send this bill. The home rule resolution that this board will come. As we also need looking at about 7.5 acres. The town actually alienating as and to be substituted. And on a parallel process, we need to go through the seeker process with the board. This will probably be a type 1, but whether it's a type 1 or an unlisted, we get to the same place. But we will need to circulate to involve agencies and go through that process, which I'm sure the board has done many other times. There are at least 4 municipal resolutions that will be needed. One is a decision to change the use of parkland. Tonight, we're not doing that. Tonight is what we hope to get is the board's decision to advance that. To start the process of alienation, but we'll have a seeker resolution for and a municipal home rule request as well. Senator Hinchy's office. I did have a conversation. Senator turns out that this February we start the alienation process in both the Senate and the Assembly. So that would mean that, let's say in February we've got all the green lights, and then we can go forward and start the design. That property does have could have bald eagle habitat, and it could have Indiana bat habitat. That means we're probably not taking trees down until November. But again, we need to do a detailed design, so that lines up as well. So that's the process going forward. It is an iterative process. I will be here, I think, at every board meeting between now and November, so I'll see you a few more times. And again, I hope the activity tonight is for the board just to give a green light to start advancing. Any questions?
We're talking with the 14,000 square foot.
Yes. These days, the costs of these facilities are coming in. What potable well up there, things of that sort. We usually say $600 a foot, all in, and then let's see what it says estimates. Remember, we haven't designed it yet, and although we have a layout, materials and construction discussions, and so on and so forth, and aesthetics will influence that cost. So,
we figured out that we're talking 600 square foot. That's about 8.4 million.
that's correct.
All right, 8.4 million. Well, we put this in perspective, but it is 8.4 million to 25-year bond.
That's correct.
All right, that's gonna be about $100 a year for average residents. That's It's $8. It's $8 a month. Fill it out.
Yep.
So it's like actually a pizza pie a month. You're paying $1,000. Me, my feeling, this is a no-brainer. This has to be done.
Right,
We
but
have
that
to, we have to
facility,
have the garage.
that facility is a fraction of the size of the facility that we actually need. It does not have all of the, resources, and every highway maintenance worker, they are all traveling back and forth every day. Which takes 30 minutes to go back to the taxpayer as well. So we need to get the facilities consolidated on the same site. John, if you could go back to the map as well.
Yeah, I can. Sure.
I don't want to steal your thunder, John, but I just want to point out that part of this also we are doing.
Let me get it up for you. Hold on a second.
The 2.7 acre parcel.
Yes, I
Yep.
just want to talk about that.
What do you want? You want the map?
Yeah.
We don't have like a full community. The reason we're getting parking lot primarily, but it's not. The town. And we just connect it with the water and the septic. And then that would make it so that this is like a municipal complex park. Playing baseball and work. The highway department application. People. The
The metrics of the expenses and to a month, and that's 6,000 a month times 12 is. If we have to go out there. Town engineers, sir. So yeah, if town board is on that, that's absolutely. Okay, that no doubt would help with timing.
Well, one thing also, someone, you build on that footprint. The answer is we could, but according to the DEC, which is necessary, is good.
like you do all this work. Bill.
Since this land is fairly will cost. The amount here, it's at your other location that's on the land.
Both sides of town.
Well, logistically, you got this all
We have
set.
a public commentary at the end. Okay, actually, can I talk on that?
Right.
And again, once again, we're talking $100 a year. We need to go on. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. $100 a year for 25 years per household and so forth, I think is a bargain.
As we go through this process, and we further define the cost, there's some grant funding as well. So that's part of the process. But of course, we can't apply for any grants until the cost.
$5 million. So that would be used to offset the 8 million, so it's like 6.5 million. And 6.5 million is going to be about $74 a year for each household.
A4, so we have a little.
Just to say we should leave something in the capital reserve.
Yeah. Now, we did look from a GIS perspective at the number of properties and then provided the board with essentially an amortization. Yeah. Property in the town of Hurley.
4%.
Yeah, and that seemed like the right thing to do, perhaps.
So I'd like to introduce Ken Fitzgerald. Ken is one of the members of our EMS subcommittee, and he's going to take us through what the subcommittee has worked on since about the end of January, beginning of February. Analysis and information and that. I think that
So.
Thanks for coming. The current state and future outlook of EMS in the town of Hurley. As a result of it's been going on since earlier this year between representatives of the town board and the 2 fire departments within the town of Hurley, as well as some guests from neighboring municipalities. And we can go to the next slide. I'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So back one.
Back one. Participants, yes?
I'll take it from here.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. There will be, and we're hoping that this presentation will help inform the discussion moving forward. We're interested in opinions, public comments, and so on. There'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. So next slide is the participants. Deb Doherty from the town board led this process. John Perry, deputy supervisor, was involved. From the Hurley Fire Department, Chief Joe Decker, Assistant Chief Connor Dugan, EMS Chief Eileen Housley, we're all here tonight, Commissioner Mike Wispel, and from the West Hurley Fire Department, Greg Bailey, EMS Lieutenant, Gary Chislett, Chief, Andrew Doyle, Assistant Chief, Doug Amy, Commissioner, Kent Fitzgerald, that's me, I'm EMS Captain, Nelson Johnsmeyer, Assistant Chief, and Commissioner Justy Rice. And although all the fingers pointed at me as the designated spokesperson for this presentation, this really represents the work of everyone who is involved in those discussions. And I'd just like to compliment Deb Doherty for leading this process and for approaching it the way she did, starting with the people who are providing EMS currently with the fire departments, finding out what our concerns were, what our outlook is, and so on. So, and these discussions started years ago and sort of went back and forth between people in the departments, and finally the ball really got rolling. And once we got together as a group, we found we really saw eye to eye on the issues almost immediately. So if you've read the news recently, you've seen headlines about EMS in crisis, and you may have wondered, is this a real crisis? Is this a headline crisis? Is it happening here? And the answer to that is yes, it's real, and it is happening here. I'm not going to try and scare people and say that Hurley is in a state of crisis today, but all of us who do this worry about that and lose a lot of sleep about the issue of who's going to be responding tomorrow or the week after that, and so on. You may have seen reports about the town of Ulster recently, which is having issues with their commercial EMS service. So, as you know, volunteer fire departments have been around for decades. You can smell the history in this station. And volunteers have served this community proudly and admirably. That's a picture I found of the second and third ambulances in West Hurley. That's a 60 or 61 International, and I think a 72 Pontiac. The first ambulance was a Cadillac. I think there's a picture of it over at Glenford. They don't give us Cadillacs anymore. And for decades, could you?
Back one, start first, sir. There you go, sorry.
For decades, volunteers served the EMS needs. The ambulance were originally intended for protection of the fire department members at fire and accident scenes. And then that role expanded into serving the community at large. And just before the meeting started, someone was saying to me, it seemed like there used to be a lot more volunteers around here. And I've only been here for a few years, but I hear stories from some of the long timers about people competing to get a seat in the ambulance, about having a roster of 40 EMTs and setting up duty schedules. And that's not the case anymore, so I'll be discussing. So what's changed? Go ahead. In EMS and the community, EMS has changed. Okay? There was a time in the 60s and 70s where what you just saw, a station wagon and a stretcher, a red light and a siren, and some very basic first aid training was what you needed to run an EMS operation. Medicine and EMS has become much more complicated, sophisticated, and demanding. The amount of training.
Yep, sure.
Okay.
There you go.
To become an EMT, the entry level is 192 hours of training currently. That's a big ask for a volunteer position. And we go back just
One, sure.
yeah. Okay. Call volumes are increasing. I'll talk a little bit about the demographics of that. And the resources, especially the volunteers, have dwindled. Very little competition for spaces on the ambulance anymore. Next slide. So medicine has advanced. We've gotten a lot better at detecting and treating cardiac conditions and strokes and traumatic brain injuries, but that means a lot more trips to the hospital. It's no longer take 2 aspirin, sleep it off, see how you feel in the morning. Doctors are much more likely to send patients to the hospital for CAT scan, blood work. EMS is considered an essential service in only 11 states, not New York. So it's this strange thing of important but not legal fire departments in the town of Hurley over the past 5 years. And you can see a strong post-COVID rebound, okay, topping out at over calls a year. The majority of those emergencies and accidents. And over the past few decades, EMS has become the default safety net. You call your doctor's office after hours, you get the great ideas, still a couple decades out. So a lot of people are going to be traveling to the hospital in the meantime. And many fire departments, which were originally conceived to get a lot of volunteers to turn out for the very rare occasion of a major fire. A lot of those fire departments are now responding mostly to EMS calls. And it's not the rare occasion. It's every day. It's a couple of times every day. So the mission has changed. Next slide. The population is growing older. The red line here shows the United States population over the past 50 years. And you can see in the past 10 years, a large increase in the over. We want people to get older, okay? But that means potentially more patients, potentially wish I could find numbers going further back, but you can see just over the last 10 years, Ulster County has been aging about twice as fast as the national population. Okay? Obviously, years are the same length here as anywhere else, but the way population is shifting. Okay, the county's becoming older. Go ahead. Okay. Volunteer participation has declined a lot. Okay. There are 6,000 residents in the town of Hurley. About 12 people are actively involved in volunteer EMS. That's 1 in 500. Okay. So this morning I was sitting in the ambulance alone, unable to respond to a call, wishing someone else would show up. And when I'm sitting there thinking, well, if no one else is available, I'm responsible for 4,000 people. It's kind of daunting, and it's a recipe for discouragement. Okay, but again, we know that lifestyles, families, careers have changed. Okay, people are moving more, and if you move 20 minutes away, that's no big deal. But you're now too far away to be volunteering with your hometown fire department. People are no longer staying at the same job for 40 years, more mobility, okay? I was just saying to someone, I can't convince my own daughter to volunteer in this because she went to college, she's off in Washington, D.C. The sort of volunteerism for once was. They changed. There was a time when Empress, then Mobile Life Support Services, handled a majority of the calls in the West Hurley Fire District, possibly Hurley as well. Okay? And they were there. They had no contract, no obligation to do this, but they were a locally based company. They did it. Okay. Since based company, we've been seeing less and less of their responses. So the ball is kind of in our court as far as taking responsibility for this. Another thing worth mentioning, the training requirements have increased for both fire and EMS. 92 hours of training. And most people do a few hours a week, okay, with a little bit of orientation and so on. When you tell someone, okay, you need 4 months of training and then have to be prepared 24/7 to respond, that's, let's just say our recruitment is kind of limited. Okay, next. Okay,
Yep.
and you know, we met because we're the ones who are most familiar with this situation, but we're not the only ones concerned. Okay. Locally, we're feeling the stress of wondering how long sustain this? How can we do this? How can we assure our state released a report in 2023 called the company was creating reliability standards for ambulance services. And they were talking about phasing in with a 85% requirement and then 90% and then 95% by 2027. Okay. And volunteer departments find it very, very difficult to meet those standards. This report didn't contain any suggestions about how to fix that. Okay, it was simply saying this is what should be expected. And these are not requirements, it's not laws, but this is what the state is thinking, among other things, should be a reasonable expectation. What does the public expect when they call 911?
A response.
Yeah, 95% of the time, 100% of the time. Okay, so that's what we're thinking about. Ulster County recently released a report 2 years in the making. They looked at all of the ambulance services in the county, response times and percentages, and identified 6 EMS agencies, which in 2022 had response rates below 70%. And that's not a 6 you want to be part of, but that included West Hurley and Hurley fire departments. Okay. Almost all the 6 were volunteer fire department based services. And I could stand here and make excuses for that. Okay. I can look at 2022 and say, okay, I was on for 2 weeks here and someone else was at service for medical, but so yeah. Status quo. And none of us felt that, you know, we could in good faith endorse that. You know, we started talking about this because we felt we needed change. And ever since I came here, I've been hearing a lot of, well, we'll see what happens and try harder and not a solution. So that's the big red X. Another option is paid EMS staff within the fire departments. We have 2 fire departments that have ambulances, that have qualified personnel. Okay. Why not start paying people to fill those seats that sometimes go unfilled? This is sort of what Woodstock is doing currently. They've gone to a part-time paid model. There's a couple of problems with that. Mostly having to do with the fact that individuals cannot volunteer and be paid in the same position. So people would have to make a choice to be a paid EMT in the West Hurley Fire Department or to be a volunteer. And a lot of departments, once they've started to go that route of part-time paid, some personnel paid, find themselves going down the slippery slope of losing volunteers very rapidly. So we weren't so sure about that. Okay. Another thought is a townwide ambulance district. Okay, this would be a taxable district that could be legally established, possibly as soon as next year, that would raise funds for the provision of EMS services in the town. Currently, there is no funding dedicated to that. Provide our EMS, guarantee us 24/7 response, and we got sticker shock. Okay, it's certainly not cheap, especially for a commercial provider. They exist to make a profit. That's their business, and the overhead that they add on is substantial. Just to give a quick example, for a commercial company, just to put 2 EMTs in the seats of our vehicles would run about $40 an hour per person. What each of those people is actually making is much closer to $20 an hour. So substantial markup with outsourcing. Okay. Or the option that we townwide ambulance that looked like, it would look a lot like our neighbors in Marbletown and Olive, both of which have independent ambulance services. The typical setup is 2 BLS ambulances, okay, 1 crew on 24/7, able to respond out the door within a minute to 2 minutes, okay. Backup crews available. Both Marbletown and Olive do a good job of getting additional people to come in, okay. If their primary ambulance is going to be busy for a while, if they have a major incident like a fire, if they're going to a distant mutual aid location, they'll page for employees to come in. Okay, they'll get paid for something like 2 to 4 hours of their time just for coming in, even if it doesn't take that long. But it helps ensure that 24/7 availability. So that's the idea we kept coming back to, and we discussed lots of compromise solutions, part-time solutions, and so on, and kept coming back to the thought of, if we're going to do this, it should be done right, sustainably. Wishing we had done more. So we have the fewest calls, in the wee hours in the morning between midnight and 6, but that is also the hardest time to get volunteers, myself included. So that's what we kept coming back to. One issue we discussed quite a bit is location. Right now, we have 2 fire departments that are really ideally situated to serve the 2 population clusters of the town. So we asked, could one service, serve the entire town equally well? And the quick answer is yes. Next slide shows a map of the call locations. The blue crosses are the West Hurley Fire Department. These are all EMS calls. Green crosses are the Hurley Fire Department. And you can see there's 2 very distinct clusters in the town. And next slide.
I'm just curious if I could interject, why the 2 blue crosses on the old Hurley side? Was that because somebody was not available?
Mutual aid calls to the town of Hurley. One was an NVA with multiple patients. Good question. Okay. If you take all of those and just average the geographic coordinates, the geographic center of the West Hurley calls is right up there. The blue star, about a quarter mile from where we're standing. Okay, and the geographic center of the Hurley calls is right down here, 209, and
Right at the fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
The 2 fire stations are in a really good place. Okay, the purple star represents the geographic average. Dug Hill Road. Okay. Make all. Here are the assemble. Which is 1 to 2 minutes, which is the industry standard for a step. Short term, there was a staff ambulance stationed at this station, okay, covering the entire town of Hurley. Would that be feasible? And what you can see here is currently our 2 volunteer fire companies have pretty short travel times, average of 3 to 5 minutes. That's measured to the farthest north, west, south, and east points of the town. Okay? But that 10-minute assembly time means an average of about 14 minutes to get an ambulance to the scene of an emergency.
You're saying with the way that it is with 2 stations.
With 2
Okay,
stations.
so I'm saying
with
like
volunteers.
it's 25-minute average to go to Dort Mills Road. Right?
Okay. Well,
If you were going all the way.
if you have staff at only at 1 station, okay, you're looking at 1 to 2 minutes to get out the door, 13 to 16 minute
3
travel times. So longer travel times, but still the average comes in significantly shorter. Okay. And the other thing to remember is this is the volunteer response time when volunteers are available. So when we're having a bad year, like 2022, below 70%, then we're relying on mutual aid. Mutual aid is coming from maybe Olive, maybe High Falls, maybe Woodstock, okay, maybe Poughkeepsie. We sometimes hear Empress responding from Poughkeepsie, and that's a long haul. So the bottom line is, even using one of the existing stations, time.
The city of Kingston answer mutual aid? No.
or service. Next slide.
Give it the water to New York
Yeah.
City.
The city people. So, a location there, okay, would give you about a 10-minute average response, the same, okay, but it equalizes the travel times, okay, so reduces the extremes. That would provide the best service to the most western parts of the town. I put in the rest of the highway garage, just as we anticipated there might be some discussion about and going back to that first map I showed you, yeah, the population center. It's not or out of.
Yeah, I don't really think the ambulance going down that hill in the winter is safe.
Because that's where the center is, but that's not where the call is.
Unless there's a call on it.
So I just wanted to
Yeah,
address
first call-
that.
First call ambulance, second call
So,
standard truck was down the hill.
so locations can be worked out, but in the short term, even just putting a staff ambulance at one of the existing fire stations would be an improvement. Next slide. So benefits to the community, okay, the assurance of 24/7 ambulance response. Okay. I think that's pretty important. I think it's kind of what people expect and deserve. Okay. A nonprofit EMS organization. Okay. So we've been thinking about possibly creating an ambulance district, a nonprofit corporation, which would be the ambulance company, which would exist for the purpose of serving the town of Hurley. Okay. And this would be a nonprofit, non-commercial organization dedicated to the health and well-being of the town of Hurley. Any excess revenues will be reinvested into that service. They're not going to Yonkers or anywhere else. Patient-friendly billing practice. Most of the ambulance companies practice what's called soft billing. Commercial provider. I think should have been covered by training, public access. The city committees are where it costs nothing if you have a staff. Visible presence. Which will be like 2 employees. That's not good. Benefit. Out of the realm at all. Indian fire departments will be able to focus resources on fire department stuff, fire suppression, firefighting, rescue. Okay. Who can continue to volunteer. Assurance of EMS standby for fire. We have had situations like a fire engine and ambulance. You try to do this for hours.
Please don't.
Don't worry. a working fire with 2 people in each. Now you don't have an ambulance. So having 2 more providers available. During when the ambulance is going to get to the scene. So it really enhances the shared aspects of the mission for fire. And bottom line, we're emergency for 24/7. And when we're sometimes looking at responding with 1 or 2 people on a truck, that's a big difference. What would this cost? And this is the hardest part of it, is financial estimates, and probably what we're the least advanced on. Okay, and the town just went through reassessment, and I need to educate myself on the new assessments and so on. So I'm just using Marbletown Ambulance District as an example. Over the past 3 or 4 years, they transitioned from an all-volunteer to a paid service. Marbletown created an ambulance district to support this, much as we're.
And are the employees, like the EMS employees, are they employees of the town? Marbletown?
No, they're employees of Marbletown. Seven five. For a half of this. And when they actually put numbers out there, people look at it and say, you know, I paid $200 a week for someone. I paid $2,000 a year. I don't see any numbers for the town of Hurley at this point, but generally people think it's a reasonable investment. Next slide.
Ken,
Yes, sir.
in the town of Hurley right now, the tax rate is 0.28
For town tax.
Yeah.
tax, right? So we're talking about $100, 110 yearly, so $500,000 home.
So tell me what Marbletown is. So when you know, what you're saying is the rate, so the issue would be what's the cost for putting in, and it's gonna be the same basic cost as Marbletown. So that's what their rate is based on their total assessed value.
What I'm saying, but I was told.
But it has nothing to do with what our tax rate is. Our tax rate is what generates the town budget. But it's not.
Okay.
They're not, and what he said is correct, since I said it at all the Marbletown meetings. At the beginning, it was very rough. It was rough for the board to accept and look at what the numbers were going to be, and there was substantial discussion about ultimately what the annual cost would be to each household. It's not been, I don't think.
Okay, thanks, Chris. These are budget numbers from Marbletown. First Aid from Marbletown Knowledge have been very helpful and forthcoming with us, and I'm sure it can help us more with more up-to-date budgets. But in both of these organizations, they're getting approximately $350,000 in tax revenue. They're raising $250,000 or so in ambulance billing, some other revenues. Okay, and then expense-wise, the big numbers. Personnel, payroll, and taxes about $4,000. Other expenses. Budget. Okay. With about gathering and analysis, there's certainly much more to be done. Okay. Presentation and discussion with stakeholders. So this has been presented to the commissioners. Okay. And the commissioners of both Hurley and West Hurley that way. This is the first airing with the public, and we're planning additional, there will be a hearing on the subject of an annual on existed for decades. So some kind of location would be potentially a big capital investment. Okay, we've been thinking in the short term using the existing fire stations. Okay, conceivably repurposing a station or some part of a station. Looking at some but at some point someone might get reasonable. Legal consultation and preliminary plan for ambulance district. We have spoken with an attorney who specializes in this and has sort of laid out the process for it. An ambulance district referendum, that would be a public permissive referendum. Certificate of need. Okay. New York State requires every ambulance service to obtain a certificate of need. Okay. That was initially intended to prevent excess competition among ambulance providers, you know, the other jumps and speed stuff, you know, people racing to the scene trying to grab. More recently, certificate of need somewhat more quickly and easily. So, and that would be a 2-year certificate subject to renewal. You may have heard Northern Duchess paramedics based in Rhinebeck recently applied for a CON to operate in Ulster County. And the Ulster County legislature declined to support that and so on. It's been sent out to every ambulance service in Ulster County. It'll be a multi-year process of review, but a municipal certificate of need could proceed more rapidly. So I think that's all I have for slides. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Yes, Ken, thank you so much. So I just want to make a couple of comments. First off, again, this team has done tremendous work. I've seen, you know, the 2 fire companies come together. I just want to make sure we thank all of some of you are tremendous effort. Thank you. And Ken, thank you so much for the presentation. You did a fantastic job.
And thanks, Deb, for being willing to spearhead this process and get people in the same room thinking and talking about these issues.
I just have one question. Is everybody in the volunteer community on board with doing this?
Yes.
99%. Yeah.
We're at 99? Okay, that's something.
We have 99%.
Hey, I also
We're
want to
doing
thank,
okay.
Debbie Gowrie.
It's near and dear to my heart. My father started the rescue squad in Old Hurley. So he's no longer with us, but I just want to make sure that it continues and that we continue to have great service of ambulance.
You might have got my first day there.
I know, right? All right.
Okay, Debbie, you're up.
Yes, so next one. States, he has experience, he obviously has experience with Hurley, has all of the right training to be, so I will propose For tonight.
So moved.
Still, are we still voting on the resolution? I have to still, the next page is the contract,
Right,
so I'm still working on the scope.
well then let's wait.
Yeah, let's wait. That's all right. Yeah, but we'll be ready on the 27th.
Well,
He just said that it's, we should just come with some as. I'm just proposing and voting on it.
I'm just saying, like, moving some of these out of the way so that the agenda can continue to get stacked with stuff. It's more stuff next.
Well, I have the next. Which I could propose that we could do. I have another member to the safety committee. And just here tonight. We've all talked to her and agree she's the perfect person to join the team. And if you guys would like, we could pass that one and get that off the agenda. It's a pretty easy one. So, second, all in favor?
Aye. Welcome.
Welcome. Official. I'll give you the new tree.
Shannon Rice.
And Tim says.
What's first name? Jen?
Shannon Rice.
Shannon Rice.
Shannon.
All right, that'll go over there.
Okay, the next one, record of activities, ROA. Officials, Monday.
So basically, and I'm noticing issues. One of them is that, as it started for the retirement reports, I am realizing that the town has not reported correctly. Right now, one is anyone that is an elected official. I don't do it with 3 months, and then you submit it back to me, and we submit it to New York State takes it back and says, basically, this is what you're gonna get for retirement credit. That's never been done to my knowledge in the town, and from what I see, they have been crediting elected officials with, full-time capacity in the retirement system, which is inaccurate and incorrect. So I asked that the town board approve record of activities for all elected officials. And that includes anybody who's elected. And then, from there, we'll go on to the next thing on the agenda.
So I mean, so it was not what I did this that way. You basically, I think town board members got like somewhere between 6 and 15 hours for, a month for a pay period. But sort of all the hours.
Take phone call.
Take phone calls, that you come attend meetings, so you're. No, it's totally normal. Like myself. We're doing things sometimes that are outside the office. Your log. You turn it, you then turn it into Wendy so that it goes to the state and then they adopt and say your average. The whole duration.
Well, this should have been done probably 4 years ago.
Right. We can go backwards, right?
And it also has to be record.
Out of the realm, we can't tell and say that you work 80 hours a week. Although,
Well, please understand that.
it's just an activity that you all will, I'll give you some sheets and you're gonna all have to, for when you, Wendy or I will give you sheets.
I will provide them.
Probably Wendy. Because she's gonna want it to be in the format that the state is gonna be purchasing.
Yes.
The standard work. In the town of Hurley, that is a big problem, so we have the transfer station. Going through all the past retirement reports, again, people being. Are 40 hours. Towards most of the. Else. Essential retirement credit. Looking at past retirement reports, there have been judges that have gotten full-time capacity. I'm there, I know the judges don't work full-time. So it's a lot of cleanup. I mean, we're talking years has to be done to see what has been reported and what is correct and what isn't correct. And I have to be honest, I've done this for a very long time. We are just lucky that we have not had a New York State retirement audit because I have been through them and they are not great. So let's get it fixed. Let's get it straight. And let's move forward.
Do the resolution next week.
I mean, basically,
Well, there is like
8 hours.
8 hours.
So we do 40 hours and 40 hours.
Not gonna have a question that's a valid question.
Is this something that's also addressed in let's say bargaining agreement?
That's going to be the problem. So we have two different collective bargaining agreements, and we have one that has proposed one thing for one part of the town and one thing for another part. You can't have the transfer station be 37.5 hours and the full-time employees at the town hall be 40.
Right.
Not to be honest with you, this is gonna take me a lot of time, so the sooner you guys establish it, the better.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Next Wendy. Next one, too, right?
The next one's me too. I am asking to be approved to go to some training. Basically what it is anyone who does accounting knows that accounting will change constantly and we have to stay on top of them. Working with him quickly, he is extremely knowledgeable and I'm trying to stay on par with him. And he has suggested that I go to some training through the New York State Government Finance Association. We are members there, so that's not a problem. He has suggested that I join the Government Finance Institute, which is basically different classes, you get different credits, and eventually you get a certificate that says that, you know, I've completed all the
Amazing, right?
correct things. The cost of joining the institute is $77, and then the first program that Mr. Quigley has suggested that I take is Governmental Accounting Essentials, which is $160. As of now, everything will be done like a webinar, and I would be able to do it either at work, on my own time, that kind of thing, which I'm willing to do. But I am looking for the initial cost of the $77 to join the institute, and then the $160 to start the first program, which is the Governmental Accounting Essentials program.
I'll move for that.
I'll second.
Well, I'm waiting for what, budget one that will come out of.
The budget line.
Well, we don't have a training budget line.
I know,
Yes, we do. I thought we did.
we have contingency though.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it come out of dues?
See?
Dues, subscriptions.
Yeah, because $177 is joining.
Have budget line for dues and I forget what's.
Dues and subscriptions.
Come out of that one.
IRS, yeah.
And I think the goal is to make a training budget line for 2025.
That's where my training comes out of.
All right, what we'll do is we'll find that budget line.
And just do the subscriptions and we'll fill in
All right, we'll fill in the line itself.
So, all in favor? Aye.
Any opposed? So be it.
Thank you.
Resolution to move championship. As a town board, so. All right,
Are we doing it today?
well, we
Let's do it today.
All right, I second. On the vote. So on the document, 1099.
Okay, Councilperson. Greg is not here, and I'm an aye. We only have four.
Somebody abstained.
I abstain. It carries.
Okay, all right, then the motion is carried.
Yay.
All right, 2 for, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. The vote passes. Well, you can check this and vote, but it's not here.
What?
Okay, next resolution, in support of the Lower Isoka Stream Management Plan. Whereas.
I don't know what this is.
What this is basically,
Overview.
okay, what this is basically about, 2011. New York City would always have what's called a waste channel stream that was in Olive. And what they do is they provide, after a storm came in, a lot of debris, a lot of sediment. So what they did is they would. Doesn't settle in the reservoir. But the reservoir, they don't. Instead of being carried. So the channel. The tire motor.
That opens
They
up.
don't call it a waste channel, they change it, but it's called a waste. The first lawsuit. And now, in my opinion, New York City can try to make it. In town like we are, and they will let us know what's going on. We have that, and this is a group. Right now. And we're so those counties where the motion goes through are agreeing to this thing, and what's happening basically is we're going to be notified, we are actually participating in any discussions of it. New York City. Obnoxious, literally.
And not doing
Yes.
this often?
Yes, yes. And in fact, we have actually controlled right now that the amount of turbidity has to be at a level that we all agree. So this is just a group that's going to be monitoring.
Reservoir is a settling basin, right? And they stopped doing that and were just dumping all this, instead of settling it, they were dumping it all into
The waste.
the waste channel and down into the surface. Now they've agreed to stop doing that again.
Well, just some of the history, after they built the dam, they gravelled this lower surface from right behind Howard Johnson's, which was Begnell, all the way back up to the Marbletown line. They used to have Hurley sand and gravel in there, and that's all filled in now, down 40 Place Road, and the level of the stream has risen up because of all the rubble coming down. There used to be a foot pond that Hurley sand and gravel, but you could
Actually, two reservoirs. It's the western reservoir and in the eastern reservoir. The western reservoir is separated from the eastern by the weir that goes across there. But what happens right now is that they will pump on the western reservoir into the lower surface. That is what we have protested for a long time, because that's where all the sediment goes. They are now mixing the eastern reservoir with the western reservoir when they start emptying into the.
but only if the reservoir is at a certain percentage level.
Right. But I'm just saying though, I was there in 2011 when they were forcing this down our throats. They didn't care what was going on. Prior to that, when Mike Bloomberg was mayor, he didn't care about towns here.
When we started the Lower Surface Coalition in 2006 with a Hudson River Estuary grant, we flew the creek during the flood with the helicopter. We videotaped it, and you could see the plume coming out in the Hudson River in Saugerties. Yeah. And it was terrible, terrible, terrible.
But I'm just, right now, like, when I speak to, in fact, they're real cooperative and they're doing great work, and they will not necessarily formal discuss.
They pretty much wiped out the child population.
Right. So since I would say this came about 2 years ago, after the last lawsuit that New York City law, and I'm not. At that point in time, the lower surface had increased. What we have right now, like yesterday, we had, a few days ago, we had a tremendous amount of rain. And at that point, what DEP will do, open the channel right away to get all the sediment going this way. And otherwise, and they don't dredge. And so this is a way of not dredging. But now they're being ground. I mean, I'll put it this way. and what I saw back in 2011.
Do?
Okay.
Yeah, I
All right.
Let me pull it back up.
Any
So,
I
we'll be-
will do.
Yes, on the rail trail, Hurley Rail Trail that goes from between Hurley and Town, and they are in dire needs. And they are, they're full, it says. Ralph's last name?
Sure.
Ralph. Yes, comes through there. And he asked us to look at this resolution. We're just gonna look at the resolution today and to cover this. All right, in fact, they naturally grant 50%. And the total cost of the KF in place on that rail trail. Nothing's been spent on that 6 years ago, it was like $12,000. The rail trail is $4,000. His personal services, rail trail is $4,000. The contractual is $750. So we're gonna have to have. $700. Great to move money myself. I can make that. I'll make a recommendation to move the money.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. And this is a resolution to continue. Tuesday, so yesterday, cutting down trees and working. So resolution to authorize the supervisor to sign contract and move. On the drainage project known as Wildwood Drive, and whereas of course. Therefore be resolved by the town board of Concord to authorize this. It was, this was 17 years. The making, and only, the Kimball Terrace was 19 years, and that was completed this year. So they are starting the project right now.
I went up and walked it today.
Yeah.
They cut the trees yesterday,
Yesterday,
and we had a couple of hiccups, so we had to correct, and Dennis came up. So they had a couple of the wrong trees marked, but we got that squared away. Everything good.
all right.
Might have to redo one of the easements now. That was off a little bit.
All right. And, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Let's see,
Opposed?
no. We get back in there and, we
$87,000. 1997. I touched it all until we touched it.
Did you get a response? You can use it outside the watershed?
I called up on I told myself it was the OCS project. I told him what the project was for. I mentioned the fact that this project is for Kimball Terrace, drainage condition. He said that's perfect. I heard an email with it, was approved. So this $117,000 that's in the capital H fund, this is capital H fund number 5H. Good neighbor planning, good neighbor program. We want to move it into the capital, from capital 5H to the pay for Kimball Terrace. Going to do there, move into the Wildwood and use that for, I'm sorry, not Wildwood, use it for Kimball Terrace as we go. And as I saw, and so we're taking the money, we use that money for 27 years. And if we use that money prior, we might have gotten more money. Because the fact is though that it showed that we never moved it. So we and so we want to keep $100 in that capital H fund. Replenished by the DEP. So yeah.
They also put $3 million on a legal.
Okay. All right. So okay.
You know, this is how.
All right. All in favor? Russian law fees of the transfer station. And this is not a call. $100 in fees for brush collection, and we had paid out $17,000 to get that brush removed. Going through this. You know, we are subsidizing. What I would like to see the board and ask. And I've spoken to the translation board. They said all the contractors. When the contractors, that's less there.
We
They trail on it. So I was up there and I saw, for example, landscaping contractors helping I saw, for example, one case also, and with Mike also, we have cameras. We put cameras up on the brush pile to see basically who is dumping there. We really have not established whether about the brush. So if we eliminate the contracts in brush, which is probably the biggest ones, that 17,000 is going to reduce dramatically and coming down. So, and we'll see how that goes to the end of the end. We have to do something.
I mean, I think my suggestion would be that we offer a period in the spring and the fall, that the transfer station accepts brush during like a 2 to 3 week window. And then we can eliminate all of this, like who's who and what's what situation, because it can be a free for all for like 2 weeks. There's no.
Well, that-
Yeah, it should still eliminate,
All it has to all be non-commercial.
Yes.
Pick up trucks and
Well, here's the thing, on the outside also, we talk commercial vehicles,
I'm saying like if it's lettered
yes.
and it has a DOT number, like those kind of things.
And
And kind of markings on the vehicle.
Yeah. The only thing I'm gonna say that to know is like we stopped it for a short period of time and we got a lot of complaints.
Not complaints, no, not complaints.
Well, if you restrict.
How many is a lot?
Oh,
No, I got about 7, but the thing is, no, I got about 7, and when I explained to the people why, they understood.
Well, my thinking is, we can do Tim's idea next year when people have advance notice. But
So you're at 1/10% with 7 complaints of the town?
I had
But
7
I think,
complaints.
I agree, I think we have to get a notice.
Right, so this year, we can do what we're saying, no commercial, but for next year, make it a 2 week period, so
Well-
that people know ahead of time.
Yeah. Mike and I discussed this thing about, early late April, early May.
Otherwise, we need,
historically,
we need a scale. You need a truck beam scale. That's the only other way to
historically
do
though,
it.
Jim and the board, we used to grind brush every 5 to 6 years. We've ground it 3 times in the last 3 years, 3.5 years, because we're taking so much brush in. Now granted, there was a point where people were bringing it in like mad from the tornado. We stopped being the highway department. We do not commingle brush with the transfer station since the tornado. With the new chipper now, we grind everything that we can't chip ourselves with our chipper. We have a location on Moore Hill that we go and we dump those trees or whatever. So everything that's generated back there is coming in from mostly contractors. And I didn't do it and bring it to your attention as the highway superintendent. I brought it to your attention as a taxpayer because I saw us subsidizing other towns. Because I sat up there one day and they were coming in from Ulster, they were coming in from Saugerties, they were coming in from Olive. One guy even came as far as Shandaken because they knew that they could come down there instead of going to resource recovered where they paid more. And I don't think the taxpayers of Hurley should be subsidizing other towns' brush. So that's why.
Well, it's other
It's
towns
nothing
and
against
also
Javier and his group.
commercial,
So
like, if you're commercially removing brush, and then you're getting almost, like, what does it cost to drop a brush?
no.
$10 for brush, you pick it up.
Yes.
When you're paying 12 to 15,000, it's costing 67,000 a day to grind. We were lucky to get resource recovery in
So it
there,
needs
but
to
we
be
still
like-
have the truck all those
So like a box on this
Comes
being
in with
charged by a measurement.
with a dump trailer, and he pushes it down
You squeak
with an
this.
excavator, so when he dumps it out, it comes out like a brick.
Can I throw one in
Go ahead.
for you to consider? We were going to have people that are coming in and saying, I picked this up at a local Hurley resident and I'm bringing it here. You would have to consider, when you're saying non-commercial, and just because I get the calls too. I think anybody who's coming in commercially, even if it's coming from a town of Hurley property, it's commercial, and commercial is supposed to go to RRA.
They're getting paid to do it, so they're gonna
No,
do
I'm
it.
just saying, when you clarify, because at the transfer station, they are going to be able to clarify. On the best of the meeting, they start so that
Commercial.
private resident comes in with his.
The truck must be unmarked.
In his trunk, that's resident, so anybody bringing in a trunk.
The truck must be unmarked and it must not be larger than a 1-ton truck.
That's
And
what
that's
we,
what you
that's what we discussed
Yes.
today.
Yeah, there's
At
nobody-
the train station. We did that discussion.
So like Mike's F-550s can't dump brush.
Landscaper or an entity that's doing work for homeowners.
Right, you're getting paid to do that.
They got scales down there, they charge by the weight. You know, we shouldn't be getting involved because it's just costing us too much.
Because we're asking other taxpayers to bear this expense, you know, like
And it's not
each
cheap.
person must bear their expense.
So we're gonna, so we're putting up cameras at the gas night station. Exclusive cameras.
Like the pile that we got there now, it's probably anywhere from 1,000 ton, 1,200 ton. And we gotta truck that all down to resource recovery, so I gotta charge FEMA rates for the trucks and I gotta charge man hours. For the men, and give you a voucher for it. By DEC, we have to have that file out in 30 days.
Well, no. Fire on the way.
No commercial, No mark-
No, because the commercially plated truck is okay.
right.
Because the way
Well, one
that
time.
works in the-
So no marked trucks.
Nothing above a 1 ton and no marked trucks.
What are you gonna charge for one ton?
Well, we need to have a rate
20.
really
There is from 10 to 20 right now.
for all sizes.
No, for,
One ton should be $50 now.
well, okay, we're talking about, 1 cubic yard, which is a pickup truck, small pickup truck, and that's $10.
Cubic yard is 3 by 3 by 3.
Right. Right, so we're talking about that, and that's $10 being raised to 20.
So, okay, at 150, 180,
20. Whatever.
Let's go over this tomorrow and we'll,
can be charged 50. We need a rate schedule. For the document for this.
The bed of a pickup truck is not 3 feet, it's 6 feet. So you-
2 yards.
2 yards, okay.
Well, we're talking about,
But I'm just telling you, your number of saying 40 is typically, it's 20, it should only be 40.
but right now it says 1 cubic yard is 10 feet. I'm sorry, it's $10. So I'm just saying that that's what it says right now. We're gonna say, 1 cubic yard is 20. If it's 2 cubic yard, then it's 40. Yes. Okay, all right, yeah.
It needs to be evaluated by the size of the yards, not by the truck.
Yes.
I just feel anybody come in there with a 550 dump truck, 1 ton dump truck, is commercial.
Yes.
Well, that's what no vehicles over 1 ton.
They bring it up in a pickup or a trunk.
Mhm.
Back in your minivan.
If it's a pickup truck, it's a,
I think Kathy got them to start monitoring how much they take in for brush, so you guys
no, it's not,
saying in clerk's office, you had Javier start.
No, it fit my.
no,
It just wasn't what was being looked at, was not looked at fully.
right. In other words, they started January 1st of this
And
year.
again, this is me coming as a taxpayer, not as. Subsidized.
The thing is, though, but if we eliminate all those commercial trucks, that the amount of, brush to be, ground is much less now.
Because technically, we're not really equipped to take it, and the Ulster County Resource Recovery is.
All right.
Well, then if we're not, what you just said, we're not equipped to take it, Ulster County Resource Recovery is, I think we should offer this small window and not open this back up again.
Next year, because we need the people, the.
0.1% of the tax
Are
rate.
you calling the questions of the board?
Other costs involved, we have to sit there and
We got it, we got it.
push it up a little.
We talked about, then, Hamilton Transfer Station and the point of sale, you have that already done. Notify October, November agenda meetings will be held at Town Hall. This, room is reserved for fire department. Grant money. Before we discuss that, capacity printer for the town hall. What's that? Basically is that the highway department has a print really doesn't fit our needs at all. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to take that printer that we have at town hall, bring it to the highway department so they can take their needs, that kind of thing. We then go and look at others. We've already had two bids come in, around $5,000 for a new printer. Five. One is a Rico, one is a Toshiba. We're waiting for the third one to come in.
They can go into like, one back in 2022.
Toshiba came in.
It might be lower capacity. Because there's many speeds and feeds with these printers.
This Toshiba here is 5,000. Is that 4,500?
They work great.
Yeah.
How many pages a minute?
I don't know.
What's the number on 25, 25? Or is it the? That's a really slow.
Go eat your dinner, Michael.
45, 50 pages.
Go eat your dinner.
Not.
Yeah, so you
So that's
really
pretty slow.
to make sure.
That's traffic slow to me.
Okay, next one is the library.
Library, we have now received, we have preliminary plans, which still have some final things to move around on, lock in the, all the different things, and a couple of things on here, I feel like we're actually, his estimate was 414. The library in the last year, and it was higher than 414 number. So next steps are, we've got a meeting on the books next week for with the group to kind of work out the final details of the of the actual plot plan. And then we also are meeting with potentially somebody for a grant. We've already received one grant for that, or we're able to apply for the grant for about $25,000. It can upgrade to the library, but we have a lot of them as part of this project, so those are, it's great to have multiple funding participants in this. So we're just chugging away on this, and I'll come to the board with a resolution when it's needed, and we'll just keep this thing moving. That's it.
And one last thing is, I should present out that we are applying for a matching grant, and where Central Hudson pays Kristen accomplished a 25, you got 25. We're looking at putting mini splits at the old library.
Yeah, that's what, is it where we,
So
so it's, what's gonna be available for the library is more like, 20,000 because 5 is gonna go to the.
right, 5,000 goes to the.
I saw 25 in it, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let me ask you a question, mini splits, what do they go for?
6 to 10,000
All right, so there you go. So we have that up
for the size needed for each. Yeah. You can get a 2-head system too, I think. There's several different configurations.
Okay.
So,
all right, next thing here is the short-term rentals.
so for short-term rentals, we got some complaints, several months back, so we've got form, and we've been meeting about the town's short-term rental law. It's still a little wonky, it needs a little buffing out, I'd say. And, so there's discussion from a total ban on short-term rentals all the way. Our law has a clause that says like it must be an owner present rental. It's not really a discussion, but we're having. And it's like you're trying to have like. We can actually make it.
All I can say is that we did not come up with a short-term rental plan so that people could make money on it. It was so that you were living in your house would be affordable because you needed to have a little extra, not to buy.
What was brought to my attention, okay, what was not a for-profit situation, which that's a whole. What was brought to my attention was the fact that if I go to Florida for 3 months in the winter, and for instance, this is an example, and I'd like to rent my house out, and I can do it this way, for some portions of that time, and recoup the money. I'd like to do that, and right now the law actually prohibits it. So, so there's logic to, at the moment, every argument. Some logic.
And it's called Picasso. Right, so it's from the western states. They're buying up houses, and they get around the short-term rental by calling them timeshares. All right, and so we have to evolve with them also, and go from there.
This is a new thing that's going to come to the town.
All right. Well, okay, planning board bylaws. I sent you each a copy of the planning board bylaws that was passed by the planning. I know. I want you to look at that. All right. Okay.
Is that something, what is the, I want legal clarification.
That's it, yeah. And if you guys go to the agenda on the website, there's a link to it. And it's on the planning board page too. It's all here.
Isn't this stuff that gets adopted by the town board? Like, when I read it, that's what I thought. I'm a little.
We are the ones that should be dealing with this, not the planning board.
Right.
So in other words, so here's the thing, this is a platform here. We then make changes on this thing, not make changes on this thing, discard the whole thing, whatever we want.
Okay.
This is in our purview, not the planning board.
Okay.
So this is something that I sent out, this thing, this is what they'd like to do. Look at each section and decide yes, no, or whatever. In that sense. Okay. All right, and everything else here is done. All right.
No, we need to go back to the community relations specialist. Yeah. So, did confirm that the law does require not the majority of individual voting, it is the majority of the whole board in order to pass that.
So therefore, we are 2-1-1.
No, 2-1 is not a majority.
So do it next time when Greg is here.
Well, the issue with that.
Someone can propose a resolution or similar resolution for the next meeting.
There is
This
another
resolution
resolution
did
on
not
packet.
pass.
There's 2 resolutions and I don't know what the second one is about.
So we'll take, I guess, stable. The only problem with that is because of, this is not resolved, that the CBA.
No, it's not tabled. This actual resolution did not pass, so someone can propose a new resolution.
All right, we are now finished with our part of the agenda. We're now open for public comment. Please,
Motion to open for public comment.
any,
Department.
Come to the.
And considering the new fire departments, I didn't see anything about a second floor. And why is everything,
Highway department.
highway department, new highway building? I mean, why not build a second floor? You know, just have some extra space available. And
well, I spoke to John Russ about that. He said it wasn't feasible at all.
it's not feasible at all.
Yeah, we asked about that, having a second floor. He said, way too expensive, first of all, said, and really not feasible.
Okay.
I mean, he's got a mezzanine on the one end for mechanical. That's about it.
It just seems like a waste of space if you're
I
gonna
think-
build something anyway.
Those, especially in this climate, you know, like you can have like trucks pulling in there that have all kinds of, you know, like you need a whole nother ventilation, you know, there's a lot of.
And the
Because of
fences
the
are
height
like-
of the bays for the trucks,
Right.
that kind of
Plus
thing.
you need also
Well,
a lift.
The humidity and then like the salt coming off the trucks and you're gonna be above that.
So the area where
You're
the
ready for
utilities are, that's the only spot that you could do.
Outside.
The area where the utilities are is the only spot you could consider it. Okay. Just trying to think ahead.
It just adds a lot to move further from the utility space.
If you put a second story in for public, you have to have an elevator.
Well, it doesn't have to be public, but
You have to do
Yeah.
It's gonna be a second floor. but
It
it's
needs
gonna
to be ADA
cars.
compliant unless it's a private office.
Over the office, there's a second floor.
Right.
you can have
Cars,
office.
storage, records, files from the town hall.
All right, anybody else?
Maintenance building goes for the town. Annex, do you have?
We have one. Gate to- Trust.
Sorry.
Things called lock years, you have
Being on the map, and the-
I mean,
It just
if we have a snowstorm happen at midnight, okay? And it just adds a lot of time also to the snow response in town to have the drive. Go on off of trucks and starting them. You know, like some of the trucks are non-new and some of the trucks are pretty late model in the highway. So like, you gotta fumble around starting all these things and like, you know, if it's the first storm of the year, even if it's a really crummy response, if somebody gets hurt, like, what, how are we putting a price on it? You know, like, let's get the trucks out and respond. So build enough.
Yeah, what's going on right now, the ones that we've seen so far, the new highways, they all have, inside bays for all the trucks. Mike and I are gonna be going visiting the town of Ulster. They have one gigantic garage and then all their trucks are inside there with only.
We're gonna extend the life of the trucks too because of corrosion. And you're sitting on moist ground all the time, it's, indoors to reduce corrosion. We've got a wash facility that's inside.
why not a pole barn?
And the building basically is a.
Main thing, Greg, is that we can wash the trucks off after each storm.
Right, you could do that with 2 bays. You don't need 8 bays.
Pull them inside, this guy has a hose, they hose their truck
Hold on a
off, they can have a wash
Mike,
bay.
Mike. All right, okay.
I'm just asking because working for the DEC, all my trucks are in a pole barn. All my trucks are snow trucks too. So
What we're gonna do basically is, before we even go further with the garage, we need a public hearing. So at that point, you can voice your concerns.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Talk about the, yeah, retro. Is there a plan to actually maintain them? Because 2007. Project, we understand he's maintained, by the town, and nothing's really happened. So, you know, we're spending money, you know, if we look at to refurbish it, get a new, you know, coat of paint on it type of deal, other than just tearing them down. And I can tell you the other one, the north end was also Eagle Scout project from another town, Troop 20, Hurley Scout Troop. So that's kind of a just kicking the shins.
I probably know who that was, right?
So, but mine,
Oh, well, the other one.
Aaron Meyer.
Okay.
Paint them right now, no one does, right?
No one does.
All right.
I was gonna take care of it, and nothing got done.
In the budget, there is actually a personal service money for someone to maintain it.
Yeah.
All right, so, we will, you know, part of that, if we are gonna put this kiosk up there, we're gonna maintain it. We have allocated money for that.
Okay.
For the town budget. My question to you, can you get the Eagle Scouts to build one again?
So unfortunately, the troop has disbanded because of, because there's not scouts any left. So that's, Troop 20's been around for
Long time.
One question to ask you, like, I have not seen the kiosk at all. Obviously, you live by the kiosk there. How badly are they? Are they that bad?
truly, now I want to take a ride by because I just haven't stopped by enough. So I'll say part of my project was the kiosk, and then there's 2 benches along the rail trail from there.
We replaced the benches.
Okay, and again, I haven't been there, so I don't want, but I knew the. Yes, so,
Well, you know what? Yeah, Diana had a good suggestion. There are other troops in the area.
Yep.
Maybe we can
So-
use them.
I think it's something around that. I think Troop 8's out of Sawkill. There are other probably places that are looking for scout projects.
Okay, all right.
And
Here's Lynn Churchill.
and such. That's a good area route to go.
Lynn Churchill was across the street from me.
Yep.
He's doing a scout there. You can talk to him.
Yeah, so he was part Troop 20.
He was my scoutmaster.
He was my scoutmaster. But again, unfortunately, Troop 20 is not around anymore.
I think there's a
Yep.
truth in Rose's.
All right, anybody else wish to speak?
Thank you, Brandon.
All right,
Thank you.
all right. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
All right, discussion. No discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?